I'll start with a couple of shorter poems. This one from a while ago called 4 a.m. 4 a.m., wide awake. My lover snores. The old cat purrs like an electric razor. The clock rolls slowly around. A birch tree outside the window divides the darkness. The snow-white branches spread like cracks across a black mirror. It has taken 60 years to awaken this night, steeped in anxiety, nettled by the quiet rustle of aging. The silent squeeze of unmitigated stresses and noiseless expectations make it hard to breathe, let alone sleep. Recurrent images, reflected memories of where I've been have resurfaced. Places I'd rather have never been, let alone revisit. Grandma often said, too soon old, too late smart, so it seems now. The night is populated with snores and purrs. Anxieties that could not sleep have awakened me to keep them company. In the dark, we converse in silent language. This night, this life, these troubles will all pass away. And just like the old cat purring on the bed, I've been fed all these years. Mightn't have had just what I wanted, but I've been fed all the same. I explain this to the anxieties. Their protests fade to whimpering, wistful and pathetic. The clock nears 5. Sleep waits like a shy child at the door. This is a little shorter one. I was not even going to read it. I don't know, but I was going to start with it. Anyways, called Autumn Evening. It doesn't take that long anyways. Autumn evening. Wood smoke overlays a silent symphony of decay. Leaves have fallen. They have fallen 100,000 times before. Human nests are electric, lit, fire-warmed. They are no more ingenious than those of the eagle or the robin. 1,000,000 years from now, not one will have survived, not even in fossil remnants. A storm sends waves crashing against the Joggins cliffs. More land is torn, unearthing fossils from another epoch. Winter is waiting in the wings, a switchblade-toting bully. Soon it will have its way. Tonight, ensconced in my own autumn, I'm counting my bones, sniffing the air and clawing the ground along this jagged coast like a restless dog looking for a place to lay down. A topical old poem, and really just like a self-righteous bit of shit, you know. It's what are you gonna do? But it's topical because we're having an election, right? You know, so it's called ballot. So, ballot. I've cast my lot. Try that again. I've cast my vote, thrown in my lot. Rucksack packed, penknife, flashlight, hard candy, laundry. I aim to march amongst the clan of light. I pledge allegiance to the creative power, to the breath within a seed, the clock of tides, and the primal photon of love. I've marked my X in the polling station of my heart. Yea, to the half of all that is light. Yea, to the inexorable impulse behind respiration. Yea, to the gifter of instinct, impulse, and sensation. Oh, that I could vote straight ticket for light. That I could discern creation from destruction and opt for it. Light is light and void is void, yet they intertwine, meeting at the margins, mimic one another at times. On metaphysical principle, I stand and punch my ticket with two-handed vehemence, with a sledgehammer if I could, in favor of life. That I could live to the platform of health, happiness, charity, freedom, conservation, and the atomic purity of love. I pledge allegiance to the stars of the night sky, the ocean's unfathomable heart, the smiling eye of God. So this is a few poems together. It's like a package of poems called The Disappearing, The Reappearance, The Appearance, and then Bus Ride to New York City. I'm going to leave out the reappearance. So not everything that I'm going to read tonight is strictly my Louise and I wrote a joke book, so we're going to throw a few jokes in anyways, which is, for instance, why did the roofer call in sick? Shingles. That's the newest one. That's a professor studying the history of humans and house cats claimed to have found the missing links. A university review of his research found he was a lion and a cheetah. When confronted, he claimed he was just a kitten. His work was put on pause and his funding clawed back. They asked for his letter of resignation. Yeah, so that's maybe an antidote for this. The disappearing. Leaving Florida, headed north and away, the sound of surf fades to memory. Know without a doubt that today was the last time I'd see Jim Foster alive. Alzheimer's disease has him. Like Jim Croce's Leroy Brown, he's a jigsaw puzzle with a couple of pieces gone. Foremost amongst the missing pieces is the light from his eyes. We're on a 2-lane up through Alabama. We get the news that Bill Mundell is gone. Last time I saw him alive, we tried talking over live music. See you soon and the like. We never made the time. Took a minute to recall his mischievous smile, his contagious laugh. Long out of town and the sun hung on the horizon. County and state lines fall behind us. We're on a long land swim home, burning tires and gasoline. Another call, this time from Harvey Lev. A grim prognosis of one last summer. The call stopped me in my tracks. Truck pulled over as I listened. No longer a candidate for surgery. Affairs in order has spread. Days fall like sugar sand through wrinkled fingers. Breath pulls hard like syrup. We start to move again, my hand loose on the black steering wheel of a bright orange pickup truck. We seem to drift towards translucence, disappearing with motion as though we were never there. Like celluloid film left in the sun, the images we hold fade to green-brown oblivion. Focus blurs, existence is nixed. Harvey told me that he had a hard time imagining not being here. I'm moving so fast now that I have a hard time actually being anywhere. It's been a long day with more than 1,000 miles behind us. Even our scent has disappeared from the south. New England is snow-sheathed, a point closer to home. The trip itself is disappearing. Home again. A walk over frozen ground. Out by the river, I recall my sister Margaret, who disappeared over the horizon a year ago. The morning dew frozen onto the pine needles brings her memory back. She would have captured this magnificence with a camera. It is the Ides of March, and an eagle sits on eggs in its nest across the river. The bird sits as though in zazen meditation. It transfers the energy from its being into the eggs, the creation of a new generation in the face of disappearing. The appearance. I saw God this morning in the lineal glow before dawn, an apparition in the mist, fine as cornstarch. Venus hung like a child's aspirin in the sky, a sliver of moon pale as crepe paper, clouds attended like surpliced acolytes. Planet Earth hung like a host in its hands, the sun's corona an audience on the horizon. God appears in the healing of my wounded hand. The damage is now pink and dry, looking like shrink-wrapped ground beef. I heard God's laughter in the river that runs both constant and ever-changing past our home. I heard it in the drumming of a woodpecker's beak, staccato bursts of military precision. I watched God appear serene and solitary in the form of a mourning dove waddling across the yard, picking seeds from the ground. I smelled his apparition as the scent of the newly thawing earth. Another companion piece to this, and it's kind of maybe, it's probably only of interest to me, but it's tough. It's called Bus Ride Boston to New York, October 2022. And it's a story that the ending doesn't show up here, but it has a very happy ending, which is I went to see my son in New York. I went to see my son in New York, and I had a big pickup truck, and I couldn't really park it. It was like, $90 a day to park it at the hotel, so I parked it in Boston and took the bus. And so I got a poem out of it. And actually, for my son, who was at risk at the time, I was afraid that I was going to lose him, And he's come back to life. So it's a lovely thing that came out of this bus ride, Boston to New York. I stood in line to board the bus. I've stood in line bored, been in line hungry, in line anxious, alone, accompanied, sometimes herding children like goats, stood in line to pay money and stood in line to receive it. All in all, I have some experience standing in line. Bus boarded, bag stowed, I have a pen and a notebook for company. The motor coach idles beneath fluorescent lights hung from a concrete ceiling. Fellow passengers are illuminated by their cell phone screens. A thought, what if these ubiquitous screens ingest just as much as they emit? Perhaps each consumer is being consumed, their energies used to fuel a disparate, alternate universe. Air brakes chirp, and the bus pulls away from the curb with a groan. We're in a long aluminum can on wheels where Sikhs, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and atheists, all of us God's people, hurtling over a worn scar on the earth's surface toward New York. Looking out the bus window, I see a place where I was nearly murdered, where I nearly killed a man, an event long ago past. Had it transpired differently, I would be either still in jail or a grave. We roll through towns that surrounded my youth: Newton, Wayland, Natick, Framingham, Southborough, Westborough, places I left my innocence, roads where I learned to drive. A look around the bus, and I see we're an international crew today. Not many, if any of us aboard are traversing the acreage of their past as I am now. Yet I imagine everyone aboard has a ladder that they use to descend into the well of mind and memory. The bus decelerates off the highway and descends into Worcester like a giant silver bird. We plunge through the city streets, the diesel engine whining and groaning. The city of Worcester has morphed since I was last here, perhaps morphined as well. I too am morphing, my beingness each instant crowded a little closer to the exit. After a pause, the bus pulls away from the station, continuing toward New York. I spent years here, building Union Station, Med City, Mass College of Pharmacy, Route 146, Holy Cross College. Years of rage, shackled by circumstances I thought were beyond my control. I know now they were of my own choosing. Nitroglycerin days, reactive and toxic, prey to my own compound ignorance. I didn't know that I didn't know. As the bus hits the highway, I feel like my mind needs a bath from rolling around in a dirty past. Recollections of ex-wives, lovers, junkies, junkyards, and thieves. Out on the highway, I spot the house where my son was born, Fairfax Road on Vernon Hill. He's the reason I'm aboard the bus now. He lives in New York. Late autumn, tawny trees, golden grass, brick buildings, the bus bogged in traffic. I've participated in blasting rock along this highway, participated in renewing miles of asphalt, days of labor that few, if any, other than myself can recall. A slow crawl across the causeway that bisects the electric ponds, a place where years ago my children and I explored in an old aluminum boat with a 2-horsepower motor. We played hide and seek on the islands, swam in the murky water, caught bluegill, perch, and largemouth bass. The bus gathers momentum, and we are suddenly, if not sullenly, in Connecticut. The tobacco drying sheds of yesteryear are torn down, replaced by strip malls and condominiums. The gentrified woods here are reputedly populated with aging rock and roll stars. Hartford, insurance capital of the world, Aetna, Travelers, Prudential, the eponymous Hartford. I noted in my construction career that the only people building in an economic downturn were insurance companies, hospitals, and schools. Education, medicine, and surety are the 3 cash cows of capitalism. West Hartford, in regret over a long-legged girl who tried unsuccessfully to save me. She deserved much better than I had to offer. Half my college class hailed from shiny Connecticut. My roommate, Chris Ford, who I never saw again, Dr. Mark Hagel, others who went on to sell insurance, build submarines, and a few like me who turned in, tuned out, and dropped off the face of the earth. South along the highway, honks on migration grace the top of nearly every light stanchion. They wait for roadkill, which is plentiful. Sometimes it is the honks themselves killed. The ancients averred that the honks were messengers from the gods. If that is in fact true, this highway is a chain of unopened telegrams. The sun is set, and in the evening rush, I cannot keep my eyes open. As the bus rumbles through the streets of Manhattan, I'm awakened. The machinery sways and growls as it navigates its way into the Port Authority's station. Gravel-eyed, I disembarked and find my son waiting for me at the gate. So, throw this one in. This may be a supernatural poem. Anyways, called Voice from the Other Side. At the wake of a friend, the mourners are reminiscent of a movie I think I've seen. We're all different colors here, sundry spectral frequencies, sundog variations. A television plays in my head, it plays in my head, it plays in my head, and lately it's all cops and serial killers, and I don't give a damn about either. They're just not good company for my mind. I knelt at the casket to offer a prayer and conjure a memory. The decedent's face was solemn and waxy. Upon closing my eyes, I was swept upward in a crescendo of kaleidoscope colors. It was then I heard the decedent's voice state cheerfully and clearly, "You won't believe what they have here." My eyes popped open in dismay. A quick glance around me verified that I was alone in the hearing. It's actually 2 words, proper meaning correct, and gander look around, so propaganda. And it starts with a quote from Pablo Neruda, a quote from probably about a week before he died from the beating that he took as they were searching his house. There are no weapons here but words. Pablo Neruda, 1973. Daily pronouncements are made, just like the baking of Wonder Bread. Torrents of propaganda erode the collective consciousness. It smells like the death of freedom. In the beginning, there was the Word. In the end, it's just words. Words tossed like bricks, words dumped like gravel, words stacked like cinder blocks build prisons where truth is incarcerated. Civility is forced to capitulate. The commonweal is hauled away. We've been stricken with a metaphysical neutron bomb, one that kills the spirit and leaves the flesh standing. It's time to take a stand, sort wheat from chaff, take a propagander, tell the truth, testify. This poem is called Codeine Eyes. Your codeine eyes pierce the dusk, shine like lamps beneath a bushel basket. You have passed the afternoon like a drunkard stumbling through a minefield. You raise a cup of coffee to your lips in tribute and call cheers. If a jetliner crashed in your backyard, you would, it seems, remain the same, unflappable, cheerful, and vacant. You won't remember this day. Or if you do recall it at all, it will be a vague image, a dizzy pattern like morphine sleep. I'll carry a picture of this day as a totem of regret for lost possibilities. Okay. So I'm reading a lot of stuff here. These have not really seen the light of day. I mean, it's endless, but we'll end at some point. I'm not going to take a break to let you get up and pee, though. Lose half the crowd. What, fellas? I'm not done yet. I save myself that indignity. Yeah. So this is called Leaving Home. I actually remember when I wrote this, and I was leaving home, and leaving home. Leaving home again. I'm prepared this time for anything. A tunnel of white light, a police gauntlet, a sudden revelation of my life's true purpose. More likely, I'll encounter just another lonely road drifting southward. I'm packed. Passport, past lives, toothbrush, camera, and underwear. I've knelt my suitcase shut, certain that I've packed some items useless, meanwhile leaving others items essential behind. There's no knowing the road ahead. Possibility whispers like the insects of summer as I lock the door and walk away. My lives, past, present, and future, are aloft and descending, always too much and never enough. A sensation like deja vu, like deja vu, like deja vu tells me I've passed this track before, as though dice tossed in ancient times have yet to land. Home won't fit in a manila envelope. Can't be jammed into a travel bag, yet it lingers in the light of the eye, the tingling of the fingertips. There's no real leaving it, nor is there any return. On the bus to the airport, I imagine the city buildings as cardboard cutouts in the early morning darkness. My eyes are like a security camera at a gas station, seeing everything, perceiving nothing. The bus hits highway speed. Next, the jet will scream down the runway into the air, and I will be carried away from, and I will carry home away from home again. So this poem is coupled with the next poem there, companion pieces, and yeah. It's a poem about a record. Actually, it has another record mentioned in it, too. It's called Laura Smith's recording, Vanity Pressed. The songs hop across my mind like robins across the lawn between the trees. It is difficult to fathom that such excellence could elude fame and fortune, just like Eric Freisch's Down at the Opera. The songs slide into one another like seasons changing. Melodies Canadian as lupins in summer, russet as leaves of fall, unblemished as fresh fallen snow. I couldn't discern initially the depth of what I was hearing. Like a really good meal, her music feels good long after landing. She's gone now, joined the maritime choirs from away. No more songs forthcoming. And this as well called Sad Day for Laura Smith. I was a kid hippie the day Jim Croce's plane crashed. It was the day after Graham Parsons was found dead in a California motel. With a grave face, another hippie told me, I don't care when it's a politician or even an actor, but it's a sad day when musicians die. And so it has always seemed to me since. Music is an ethereal language, universally discernible. It is spoken expertly by too few. Music expands into the void, spins, and captures free-floating heartache, alienation, distress, love loss, and calamity. Existential poisons are rendered inert by musical notes that sometimes thunder, sometimes whisper, sounds that are sometimes sweet, sometimes fiery, artfully chained together, act as an antidote to angst, a force field protection against despair, a portable companion. Music can be a communion with saints unnamed. The magicians that create these elixirs are flesh and blood. Some are prone to fits of despair, others given to unending drunkenness. Some are quite mad, others are eminently solid and sane citizens. They wear their gift as angels' wings, whether sane or mad, pleasant or bitter. It is a sad day when musicians die. I got the news of Laura Smith's passing today. It reminded me of James Taylor's singing, just yesterday morning they let me know you were gone, but I always thought that I would see you again. So I have a belt on, leather belt. Poor Maria. I won the pits. I really have. I really should have a disability check sent to me because I was born with no ass. My pants are always falling down. You figure the amount of time spent should be about, good for 30%, So the guy that made the belt was a longtime friend of mine, and a long-time schizophrenic, untreated. He actually lived years in an abandoned house, and all that being said, he was my friend. The Leatherman. Words almost never aligned for him. The syntax of psychosis left me wondering what he wanted to say. My understanding often little resembled his intention. Our conversations were like a game of marbles on a stone floor. He was angry that God would not print out an itinerary onto a morning blackboard for him. Angry because there was no blackboard, no chalk. Angry that each decision he made was imperfect, in fact, had to be made and changed and made again. Angry at his mistakes and angry that he loved to be angry. He worked very hard for each mistake he made. One day, God finally spoke to him and told him what to do. "Fuck off, and what took you so long?" the leather man replied, and attempted to hide behind the sofa in his ramshackle shop. After a time, repentant, he came out and did as he was told. Unhappily, he called upward to the heavens, "See? See?" He then descended like a down feather, realized, like Jonah, that it does no good to be angry with God. Afterwards, his words lived in piles on the floor, piles of fuck, motherfucker, and shit that had served as adjectives, nouns, even whole paragraphs fell to disuse. Slowly, they became buried beneath leather strips cut for belts and skived patterns for unfinished shoes. In the end, the kitchen cabinets called to him at night. They derogated, disturbed his sleep. Only the sewing machine spoke kindly to him anymore, and then not often. The lady in the apartment downstairs never stopped pounding on the ceiling, not even in the months after she had moved away. Yeah. So this has certainly never been heard by anyone before. All this stuff has never been heard by anyone before, so it's cool. The last one will have been heard by people before. This is called Simpson Park, Framingham, Massachusetts, 1973, 2017. I guess it's self-explanatory, except that I used to split my time between Framingham and Nova Scotia, and I went down in September, changed the time. I woke up too early. I was teaching school, and I was up too early, and I ended up with this poem. So, September 28, 2017. Summer ran out of gas last night. I slipped shivering into the street before sunrise. 5 a.m., wide awake, restless, and lost as spilled milk. The mania in these parts is contagious. Everyone here is cranky. Everywhere I'm met with angry eyes and rushing traffic. I eased my old Ford into the flow of workday morning traffic. Part 2, October 31st, 1973. Simpson Park, Halloween night, 1973. Me, Tim Barry, Clayton White, Paul Mannion, Donnie Shelley, and Jimmy Myers, all high on LSD, all of us soon to be scattered, never to reconvene, each of us with our own appetites, addictions, and aspirations. A hard frost that night. The Sudbury River steamed like steeping tea beneath the crescent moon. We scattered like quicksilver across the night, howling. My mantra in those days, adopted from the Tubes, white punks on dope. Sharing the park with us that night was a family, harvesting bluegill, bullhead, and perch. They dispatched the fish with a billy against the iron pipe bridge rail and then dropped them bloodied into a 5-gallon pail. The blows rang through the night like a church bell announcing another death. 2 anomalous parties sharing Simpson Park at night. Spoiled young men burning their brains with drugs, and poor folks trying to fill a freezer. September 28, 2017. I ran the old Ford tight to the curb on Central Street, eyeing the no parking placards. I locked the doors. I'd not been here since 1973. I'd driven past 1,000 times and told myself I would visit again. Never happened till now. I left the truck, now like a boulder in the stream of rush hour traffic that is a Framingham morning, and crossed the roadway to Simpson Park. I was pestered by a feeling of illegality. It is an ubiquitous sensation in Framingham now. Everything is illegal. Placards bolted on the bridge rail as you entered the park advised in 5 languages not to consume the fish from the river due to mercury contamination. Central on the placard was a silhouette of a bluegill beneath a circle and a slash. A fork and a knife pictured below the fish were separated by a skull and crossbones. A paint company had for decades buried their waste products in the ground. The mercury from the paint leached into the aquifer. The toxic metal now painted 30 miles of river bottom. Its poisonous properties are cumulative in the food chain. It causes insanity in humans, laying short circuits across the brain. I recalled the family harvesting panfish in 1973. Wondered who had done more damage to their brains, them or us. The park was abandoned as a baseball glove in winter. The river tumbled whispering over a dam. It sped away around the bend as rapids. Heavy dew and rotting leaves underfoot. I stepped onto the pathway that runs along the river, a walking meditation with breath, footfalls, and silence. The river passed like a gentle, endless exhalation. The smell of acorns and compost, earth's vibration oscillated up through my steps and into my respirations. Tall timber swayed in the breeze. A turn in the river brought it and I alongside the Massachusetts Turnpike. High aloft on the embankment, cars and trucks idled, stretching for miles in a queue that moved only intermittently. The air wafting down from the highway was thick with a sickly sweet smell of glycol and the peppery smell of burnt asbestos. The ground was covered with a fine black dust, ground rubber from the millions of tires passing each day. I stood motionless in the woods, still as an oaken root, watched each vehicle above me as it passed slowly by, heard radios fade in and out, heard the sharp jab of automobile horns. A vapor of frustration, futility, and fury seemed to descend like static. Cars load the gullet of the city each morning, only to be vomited back out in the afternoon. I felt my heart beat like a ceremonial drum as I continued along the path. I carried memories of Mannion and White, Shelley, Barry, and Myers, along with the smell of leaves, cars, and river water. My feet rose and fell with the rhythm of the universal Om. I felt my soul healing, mind at peace, when an amber beacon flashing caught my eye. A tow truck! I set off at a sprint to save my old Ford before the tow truck driver had time to set the hook. Sheaves of enlightenment wafted in my wake like falling leaves, no longer attached. Yeah. Okay. And the last one's been read before, all the time. I read it every time I read. So there you go, tradition. You gotta have you gotta hold some kind of tradition. Although nobody gave Donald Trump that memo. Or maybe got a really old memo from 1940 or something. No. Okay, this is called Ocean Run. My brother, he was a scientist, and actually he was a lovely person, and he took over the chair of Conrad Lorenz, who some of you may know who he was. He wrote a famous book on aggression about animal behavior, and my brother was his apprentice. So he lived in Austria, and his wife came with the ashes and said, "John wants his ashes thrown in Nantucket Sound. Can we rent a boat?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." I called, and it was like $700 to rent a boat. She said, "Well, I didn't mean that much, I said, "Well, we could take the ferry boat to Martha's Vineyard, but it's illegal actually to throw people's ashes out." So, at any rate, so this is a true story. This is a true story. It's not exaggerated at all. Ocean Run. My brother John requested we pour his ashes into Nantucket Sound. Thus, we boarded the Steamship Authority ferry, aiming to commit the illegal act of tossing his ashes overboard. A last goodbye. 7 clouds hung like laundry drying in the sky. Islands sat on the open sea like piles of grain on a sheet of glass. A shortened day, unseasonably warm, noontime sun. Timetables tilted towards darkness, everything fading. fading. We sat on the sun deck. It was me, Marlene, and Maya. My life's lamp is trimmed and burning. Days tear through my hands like rope burn. Days that should be worn like a loose shirt. My brother sat as ashes in an urn on a fiberglass seat tied to an iron ship that powered through an autumn ocean. Beyond the ferry's railing, the sea jostled to infinity. Settled in the stern, Maya sucked her thumb. Marlene and I sipped Starbucks coffee, elixir of courage, antidote to grief. The ferry boat passed the jetty and its idling engines roared to life. The deck vibrated. I carried the urn to the railing. Suddenly there was a voice. "Hello, I saw you on the bus." A stranger wanted to chat. Our crime became stillborn. I carried the urn of ashes back to the fiberglass seat. The chat lasted until the ferry docked on the island. Brother John remained with us. Martha's Vineyard off-season, cottages shuttered, beaches empty, shoreline delineated by a carpet of shells, a mollusk graveyard rattling with the push and pull of flat, relentless waves. We walked the beach to pass the time until the next ferry. I carried the urn. Marlene held Maya's 3-year-old hand. They're John's third wife and family. The beach followed a meandering line. I drifted off pondering lines, meandering lines, Neanderthal lines, bloodlines, love lines, shipping lines, telephone lines, Nazca lines, lunch lines, fishing lines, airlines, soup lines, pencil lines. Lines crisscrossed my mind as our feet dug into the sand, pushing us forward. The urn grew heavy, and I heard my deceased father's voice in my head saying to me, as he often had while I was living, "You've been out in the sun too long." As we walked, a gaggle of geese paddled alongside of us parallel to the shore. Rare geese, not Canada geese, smaller black and white geese. The sun dipped in the afternoon, the air unseasonably warm, sweat, sand, and grief. We turned back toward the Steamship Authority Pier. Twilight and a chill. We were almost back at the pier. I remarked that the gaggle of geese had turned along with us and followed us back. "I've seen that type of goose before. I think John had a picture of one in his office," said Marlene. The shutter of memory suddenly clicked open. Barnacle geese. John had traveled to Spitsbergen to study them when I was 9 years old. Afterwards, he studied imprinting on geese with Konrad Lorenz in Austria. Now, along with his ashes back from Austria, he has brought the geese. The appearance of barnacle geese in Massachusetts is an anomaly that, though not impossible, is exceedingly rare. His spirit, it would seem, was resting in or at least amongst old friends. Strangely, we had been blind to the significance of the geese. Always in life, he seemed to be calling out, "I'm here, I'm here," with no one really listening. Marlene and I realized at that same instant he was there. The veil of death that evening was diaphanous. A dying ocean looked at our footsteps in the evening light. On the boat, Maya slept in Marlene's arms, dreaming. I meditated, wondering whether death and life are repetitive processes. With the sun fully set, the ferry made its way toward the mainland. The moon rose. Alone in the night, we spilled his ashes into Nantucket Sound. Moonlight, joy, wonder, sorrow, and weariness all mixed together. As we said goodbye, I exhaled a prayer, a hope that just like the geese, he'd instinctively know the flight path home. As threatened, the last poem. So this poem is, actually Katrin was in the same writer's workshop. We did was it Ann Siddons? Was that her last name? Yeah. Was a novelist. I think she from Cape Breton, maybe. I don't know, she's a maritime writer. She put a writer's workshop on, and she asked us to write a blessing, and I wrote this blessing thinking of this kid I knew. I don't want to. This is a film, so I'm not going to break my anonymity. I guess. So I was at a meeting of some sort, anyways, and this fellow was collecting a coin, and he was just new at it, and I had been years at it. And he said, "I wake up every morning and I say thank you," the first word. And I sat there going, "Bullshit." And then I said, "Wait a minute. He's happy. I'm not." So I had a little experience of open-mindedness, and I started to do that. And so my experience with that experience gave me this poem, which is today a blessing, and it's in memory of that kid. He's passed away, Randy. Today, when you open your eyes, may your first thought be, thank you. May you owe nothing, be owed nothing. Today, when you awaken, may you be greeted by the truth that this life is transitory, a gift to be cherished in the present. If you are able to stand, stand for those who cannot. If you can walk, walk for those who cannot. The day will come that you can neither stand, nor walk, nor even breathe. Breath is a gift. The day is a gift. There are arguments and complaints to the contrary in the billions. Today, when you awaken, may you answer these with a smile, the word yes, and the sacred prayer.